questions. And if you do have a question, just hit the raised hand once again. I'll start with you, Denise, the newest member of the Big East coaching family. I know it's certainly been a unique, first 7 months on the job, but what has it been like coming back home to your alma mater at Villanova and taking over this program?
Yeah, well, unique is a great statement. Obviously, it helps that I'm familiar with Villanova in this transition. So it's been tremendous. I mean, just being welcomed back by many of those that were here when I was playing many years back. But the team has been great, just really trying to enjoy each day, each opportunity that we have together and not taking it for granted. I think it's everything you preach day in and day out about being in the moment. And fortunately, this pandemic has really forced us to do that. But it's been a great start for me in the sense of being here and with a special group. So looking forward to getting together with everyone in person at some point or just seeing each other at games.
Kurt, let's turn to you and your Butler Bulldogs. When people are thinking about Butler basketball these last couple of seasons, I know how much you've stressed defense. It's part of your program's DNA. How do you get your teams to play as well as they do on the defensive end of the floor?
I think it starts, John, with recruiting the type of players that fit your system. And, we've been fortunate over the last 3 years to have some really quality young ladies. And I think that has continued. And I think the second thing is, it's just something that we believe in and we sell it to our players. They believe in it. And, it just seems to have our kids excited and motivated because they know how many opportunities that they can create from it.
Let's send it out to Omaha, to Jim Flanery, the Creighton head coach. And Jim, you had history over the offseason, and I'm talking about the first WNBA draft pick in program history, that being Jalen Agnew, the Big East scoring champion last year, player of the year. I'm curious here, an amazing accomplishment for Jalen. How much do you see the work ethic, the attitude that she put into your program paying off into your current team?
Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of gloss over what kind of an impact that can make on those who are around her. And I think, to Jalen's credit, she really improved over the time that she was here and was in the gym a lot. And I think that, whether she'd been drafted or not, or whether she'd been Big East Player of the Year last year, she still set an example. And I think that, if you're a younger player, you witness that and you strive for that. And if you're just coming into the program, you have an understanding of what that maybe looks like because you're seeing the upperclassmen worked out hard. So, and it's about belief too. I think sometimes young women, put ceilings on themselves in terms of their development. I think watching how much Jalen developed can give a lot of our players confidence that they can really improve a lot too.
Thanks, Jim. We'll jump into questions now. Again, if you have a question, just hit the raised hand. And it's not a Big East Women's Basketball Media Day without Doug Feinberg from the Associated Press. So we'll tip it off. Go ahead, Doug.
Good morning, coaches. I got a question for all three of you. I mean, saying yesterday on the Men's Media Day, the coaching cliche of living day by day and focusing day by day in the coaching ranks is what you guys tend to do. It's never been more important than obviously right now with the pandemic going on. How are you guys each adapting to the world we're living in as far as like basically getting to the next practice or getting to the next game, as opposed to saying, hey, we have a game in a week from now, or we have 8 more practices for our next game? How do you adapt to what the world we're living in?
Let's start with Jim Flanery.
Well, I think that's a great question because like Denise talked about in terms of staying in the moment and just how long we've been in the pandemic, I think we've all had to adjust our mindset and, so you're not looking as far out as typically you have in the past. And you're probably appreciating the moment and appreciating being around people. That's the other part is like, we went a long time without being able to see our players, and they probably were okay without seeing us, but but you're also making up for some time that you didn't have this summer and early fall. I feel like we're behind probably where we've been historically at this time, but I think we're not panicked because we understand that everybody's had challenges the last 7-8 months. So we're not unique in that standpoint, but I do think that just staying in the moment and not looking too far ahead is just part of what we're dealing with. And in the last seven months have prepared us for that.
Denise.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more. It is just about preparing each day. I feel that I'm one who compartmentalizes things anyhow, and it's really the only time you're not thinking about COVID is when you're on the floor. And I'm hoping that's the same that we're allowing our players to do. That's their escape. That's their opportunity to forget about everything that's going on around them and just playing the game they love with their best friends. So really trying to recognize that, enjoy it. And of course, while we're in that moment, preparing for future, and games are on the schedule and they're planned. So just really you're looking out a little bit to when those games come into play, but really embracing each practice and each opportunity we're on the floor.
Kurt.
Yeah, I concur with Denise and Jim. It's been a process from the time that we returned in July, and our players were very excited, obviously, to get back on campus. And we forget a lot of times that the student athlete, that's what they need. They need to be working out. They need to be involved in the sport that they love. They need to be around people because typically basketball players have to be very, very social. And it's something that we can't, and I tell our players all the time, I can't promise you what tomorrow's going to bring, but if we continue to do the right thing, good things will happen to us. But unfortunately, we all know that just going to the grocery store or gas station, someone possibly could get COVID. So there's nothing that we can promise them for tomorrow, but, we're enjoying each and every day and each and every minute that we do get to be in the gym with our players, and they're enjoying each other. It's just unfortunate, I think, for our seniors and for our freshmen. Our seniors know what college athletics and college life can be like and the great experience it can be. And then our freshmen are getting a totally different experience and haven't gotten to see that other side. So hopefully they will. That would be my wish for them.
For our next questions, if you could just state your media affiliation, who you're with before asking your question, we would appreciate it. Let's go next to Howard Megdal.
Yes, Howard Megdal with the Next. Question is for Denise. Denise, welcome. I wanted to ask you specifically about Maddie Siegrist, who obviously had such a huge freshman year. Two parts to it. One is, what are the next steps for her in her evolution as a player? And just what do you see her ceiling as ultimately by the time she's finished at Villanova?
Yeah, well, there's so much I can say about Maddie and she as a person on and off the floor. She's just tremendous. I feel that's probably the greatest gift that was given to me taking over this position as an opportunity to coach Maddie and to see how she brings out the best in her teammates as well. That's been, a short period of time just working with this group, seeing that day in and day out. I think Maddie has such a high ceiling. She has great potential, and I'm really trying to remain patient with the process of her development. You just see she can do so many things, but we're going to count on her so much this year that we don't want her to be overwhelmed with different areas. But I would say that biggest steps in her growth from last year to this year is the commitment on the defensive end and what needs to be done, be able to guard perimeter players and post players. And then just the same, she's a positionless player. So really working on her handle and being comfortable, not just in the open court with the ball, but in small spaces as well. So it's a great thing to, as a coach, you're always looking forward to that development of each player. You know, it's when you have great individuals, it makes for a great team. And we certainly have one in Maddie who's leading the way.
Appreciate it.
Let's go next to Matty Morsens. Matty Morsens, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Sorry. The unmute prompt is like not working very well. I actually have a question for Kurt and Flan since Mr. Salad Pizza stole my one for Villanova. Thanks, Howard. First for Kurt, I guess, you know, we've kind of known who the go-to players are for your squads the last couple of years, the last handful of years. And, you know, obviously that's going to be kind of a transition, certainly on the offensive end. And I was just curious from your perspective, obviously it's a small sample size, but what you've seen out of Micah so far and bringing her to the team and how much of a scoring punch she's added considering what you have to replace.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've had obviously some outstanding players over the last couple of years with Coach Jennings, Whitney Jennings, who's now with me, and Tori Schickel and Michelle Weaver, and last year Kristen Spoyer. And that was a concern that we felt like we needed to address, and that's why you know, we wanted Micah to come here. Her experience at playing at this level, her experience playing against big time opponents and being successful against those opponents is, you know, something that we valued. So, you know, she can score from all three levels. She's strong. I think, you know, the thing I appreciate most about her is her understanding of the game of basketball. You can tell that she has been coached well throughout her years of playing, and she's been very open to our system and is working extremely hard and has worked extremely hard to fit in. So we have high hopes for her, and we're hoping that, you know, a couple of our other newcomers, Okako Adika, and will help us tremendously, and Analia Dawn will help us tremendously with you know, that taking up that slack of Kristen, which you know, is big shoes to fill.
Thank you. Flan, I guess, first of all, the head's looking shiny today.
Want to keep up with John Fanta.
You know, just historically speaking, it's probably almost in cliche territory to say it, but most of your most successful and certainly consistent teams have had like a senior star or a group of seniors that you can kind of depend on. And obviously those names have changed, but I wonder what goes into it for, especially for Temi and Tatum this year, to kind of take on those roles of being the players that are going to be looked to in situations of on-court adversity where things are getting difficult and they kind of have to be poised and calm in huddles and execute, you know, in high pressure situations. I wonder how that maturation process has gone for them so far.
Well, Matt, when Tatum was younger, her nickname was Tornado Tatum because what you were going to get. But she's evolved and she's grown up and matured and you know, just playing the position that she plays, you know, you have to become a better decision maker if I'm going to keep throwing you out there to play. So I think her health is huge. She's run into some injuries the last couple of years, and I think it's really hurt our development because I thought last year early we played really well when she was healthy, and then she was out. And by the time she came back healthy, we weren't, you know, it took a while. And, you know, Temi's been more steady. She's been able to play a lot really from the get-go. And so we kind of know what we're going to get from her. But I think Tatum being healthy and being steady and being confident is huge for us because we don't have that, you know, that elite score that we've had really with Jalen and Audrey the last 3-4 years. I mean, those two are good players, but they don't have the ability to score the way those other two do. But Tatum's going to have the ball in her hands a lot. And I think, she's as good a playmaker as we've had at that position for quite a while.
Let's go next to Erika Ayala.
Thank you very much. It's good to see everyone. Hope you're in good health and high spirits. My question is for all of the coaches. It's two things to consider when returning to sports amid a worldwide pandemic. And one has been mentioned is just physically how athletes are impacted by having their routine disrupted. And I wonder if you've had conversations with your coaching staff and training staff about how perhaps to adjust to that. And similarly, Commissioner Ackerman has already talked about the commitment that the Big East will make to a lot of the social and racial unrest that we're seeing in the country. And we know that athletes have spoken how that also impacts them mentally and emotionally. And also wondering if you've spoken to coaching staff and other staff on how to be supportive of college students with both of these things happening simultaneously.
Let's have Kurt take that one first.
Well, yeah, that was obviously a concern with our players being back home during the pandemic without having that normalcy, having the workout space available to them. So mental health is always an important factor with a pandemic or without a pandemic. But in the current situation that we're in, obviously we put more of a focus on it to make sure that our players know what's available to them, that we have constant communication, that we have open communication in regards to how they're feeling and how they're coping with the different stresses that have come along with this. And, like we said back at the beginning, things have changed, not just monthly, weekly, but daily for us with different protocols. So having that reassurance and having that support from our university has been huge. In regards to the diversity and the Black Lives Matter and those challenges, I personally feel like it has done nothing but bring our group closer and given us more understanding of who each and every individual is and where they're from and what they stand for. The Big East has done a terrific job of promoting that awareness and educating within that awareness. Butler has started its own initiative called Be United, where we've had speakers come in for our students, for our athletic department. Our athletic department has continuous Zoom so that we will educate and hopefully do our part to help build that bridge and develop those relationships so those talks can continue to happen. And then our actions and activity within our community will hopefully help that as well and bridge those gaps with our students and our communities surrounding us.
Denise?
Yeah, to echo Kirk and what he said, it's an opportunity, when this started with the not being here in the spring and summer, finding ways to connect with the team, educating them on what was necessary physically to keep their spirits up, emotionally, having those conversations. You talk about the social injustice. I feel that the time away from campus and the hectic environment that the group are used to on an everyday basis, it allowed us to really have those conversations of how the student athletes are feeling and what they're going through. And getting on campus together in August was refreshing and exciting, but at the same time, you had to understand there had to be a progression to get back to the physical training and to adapt to virtual learning, whether you're here on campus or not, or home. So I'm really proud of the Big East and Villanova's initiatives on educating us and having an open forum for the student athletes and the student body on what needs to happen in our communities, but in the world in general. So really proud to be a part of it and continue to move forward with everything with the movement and whatever is necessary, and continue to have the open conversations.
Jim.
Yeah, I think in terms of the physical and mental health, just a little bit more vigilance and checking in more often, and letting them know what resources that they have and access that they have to the mental health, but also just being from the physical standpoint, just, not pushing as hard early in the fall, making sure that we ease them into condition, and we still have to do that a little bit because we're still masked. So I'm a little bit, leery to push them too hard physically. So that's been a process. In regard to the social injustice and racial inequality, I told our team the other day, I said, I'm jealous of you guys because I went to college in the 80s, and I said, the 80s were the decade of greed. And I was a philosophy major, so I would have been way better in the 60s or 70s as a hippie or a protester. And I think they have an opportunity. Don't look at it as a burden, look at it as an opportunity, that they have a chance for real change because they have so many peers and others who are aware and committed and motivated. And not to make excuses, but that, in the decade of greed, that I was looking around trying to find somebody who maybe was interested in doing some of that. But so I think you just, it's how you look at it, and we need to make progress, and you have enough peers and people around you who have a chance to be motivated and committed to helping to make that change.
We'll take our next question. And again, to our media, please state your media affiliation. Alexa Philippou.
Hi there, this is Alexa Philippou from the Hartford Courant. Great to see you all. Thank you for the time today. Lots of talk we had yesterday on the men's side for their media day about the likelihood of disruption this season. Some coaches were really adamant that the Big East should maybe explore a bubble format for regular season games, if not postseason games as well. Others expressed that maybe the current NCAA guidelines recommendation for a 14-day quarantine period if positive test cases do emerge in a program, that should be reduced, and that maybe having a backlog of tests, because you all are testing so frequently, might be able to allow that to happen, that maybe the Big East could shorten it from 14 days to 10 or something like that. I don't know, I know everything's still being finalized, but do you all have any thoughts on what maybe would be the most feasible path going forward, what you would like to see to maybe try and avoid as much of this disruption as possible, but also keep your student athletes and the rest of your programs safe?
Let's start with Denise.
I was hoping we were going with Jim to answer that one. Yeah, it's so difficult to make a decision, and obviously the talks have been going on for months as to what is best. I think most importantly, trying to allow student athletes to be student athletes, and that's why the decision has been made to proceed with as normal a schedule as possible, with being home for a game and then on the road or a weekend away. The bubble format really takes that campus setting out of the equation. And I feel that each university, presidents and administrators are trying to have our students live their college lives as much as possible with all the restrictions they already have. So of course, following their lead and doing everything we can possibly do to stay safe while on campus, and then following the protocols of travel.
Jim?
Yeah, I would like to see the quarantine rules at least given a hard look. I feel like that 14 days and then to get them into condition, it's almost 3 weeks. I mean, I think there's the potential to maybe have them tested after 5 and 6 and 7 days, and potentially not have the length of quarantine that's currently recommended. I would be a proponent of bubbles if we could do it. I think, in my opinion, I think that's a great opportunity to get games in, whether it's a 2-week bubble or 3-week. I don't want to do a month or 5-week bubble, but I think if we could do long enough that wasn't going to compromise our mental health, but also, could ensure that we could get 4, 5, 6 games in, I think that would be huge, because I do think we're going to have disruption. And I know that since you're from Hartford, I just want you to know that if we do have disruption, I would be okay with it being right before we play UConn.
Get into
Well, obviously, none of us are experts in this area, but I think our sentiment from coaches to players across the Big East is that we want to play, and but we want to do it safely. And the nice thing is that most of our campuses are going into what would be like a mini bubble format here very shortly after Thanksgiving. And with the testing that each of our universities are doing, I think it's about as safe as we can make it. I would like the NCAA to review, especially the tier 1 aspect of our positive tests. We went from being able to contact trace to now an entire program being shut down. And, I think that's like we mentioned earlier, the impact of that on our student athletes' mental health could be very challenging. So I hope that they do review that.
We'll go next to Terry Toohey.
Hey, this is for Denise. Hi, Denise. Terry Toohey from the Delaware County Times. I'm sorry, it meant to identify myself. But Denise, you are in a unique situation, starting a new job in the middle of a pandemic. Like you said, you weren't able to really get together until August. Are you and the players kind of still getting to know each other?
Well, good hearing from you, Terry. First, I hope you're doing well.
I am.
I felt, again, when I had mentioned the conversations we had through spring and the Zoom opportunities, I felt it was a chance for me. It was more like a recruiting process. It really gave me that time to get to know the players individually and then us as a group via Zoom. Again, I was around the corner at Drexel. We played Villanova. I was familiar with the team itself and then the individuals as well. I kept a close eye, watching it through the recruiting process, always wanting some of the players here. So missed out then at Drexel, but here I am now, an opportunity to coach some of them. So definitely, as we now start with the official season, getting to know them as players on the floor and the chemistry of some connecting a little more on the court and trying to bring that together. So that's been fun to be a part of, but it's if there was any move to be made in the off season in a job, this was definitely a smoother one with being familiar again with the university and a lot of the players themselves.
We'll take one final question for this group from Charlotte Carroll.
Hi, this is Charlotte from The Athletic. Hope you guys are all doing good this morning. Kind of to follow up on Jim's comment, with UConn coming back to the Big East, what does that bring, or how do you approach this season a little bit differently?
We'll start with Jim.
I want to take this because I wanted to be in Madison Square Garden in person because I wanted to tell a story. I actually had a dream early in the pandemic, probably April, and we were in a preseason tournament in Cancun or Bahamas or somewhere, and we were supposed to play UConn in a non-con game, and we'd played our first game, and I didn't know when our second game was. I knew we were playing UConn, but I didn't know what day, where it was, and I'm wandering around the island, and I run into Gino, and Chris Daly. And Gino was like 6'4", and he was built like a linebacker. And long story short, I was too chicken to ask him when we were supposed to play each other. And I couldn't find any of my assistants because they were off doing island things. And so anyway, that was my kind of nightmare about UConn early in the pandemic. But we played them once 6 or 7 years ago. It's a great experience because you're going to find out, you know, one, they have really good players, but two, they play the right way. They play really hard. They make you uncomfortable. There's nothing you don't admire about the way that they play.
Thank you, Jim. We actually, that story is a perfect way to segue. We are out of time and on to our next group of coaches. So Coach Flanery, Coach Dillon, Coach Godlewski, thank you so much for the time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.